No, I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to listen and learn and excited to get involved and continue all the great work that's been going on.
Thank you so much. And again, we're so happy to have you here with us this evening. So I would like to go ahead and get started with our presentation. And I would like to also thank you all for taking the time to want to learn a little bit more about the city's Corridors of Opportunity program, and specifically learn how this program is investing in the Beatties Fort Corridor. Next slide. Also, you may have logged in a little early and saw that we had a couple of scrolling dates that were at the forefront. But I'd like to bring to your attention that the city will be hosting some engagement listening sessions. So please join to learn more about how you can get involved in the city's annual budget process, because we really want to hear from you. In addition, there were dates and times for upcoming Silver Links Line engagement sessions, and we'd also like for you to participate in that. And last but not least, we have community conversation speaker series from our planning department, which is a part of our 2040 comp plan engagement that we would also like for you to participate in. So if you need links to any of those things, please let us know, and we'll make sure that you are connected in the way that you would like to be connected. So as you may have noticed or remember, City Council allocated $24.5 million in the FY21 budget for 6 corridors of opportunity. And of course, one of those corridors of opportunity was identified as Beatties Ford Road and the Roswells Ferry area. Next slide. So you may be wondering, what makes a good corridor? And as we ventured down this road to understand how to best invest in the corridor, we asked ourselves that very question. And to get to the answer, we reviewed past plans for the area, like the Central District Plan, the West Side Strategic Plan, the Washington Heights Neighborhood Plan, the West End Land Use and Pedscape Plan, and all other plans that were made for this area so that we could understand how to invest in a way that would resonate with the residents of Beatties Ford Road. And we heard you. We saw overarching themes of we want to communicate character and preserve the history of the corridor. We want to grow and support Black-owned businesses. We want to improve connectivity, and we also want to build community leadership capacity and collaboration. So we pulled together the leadership from our Economic Development Department with Tracy Dotson, our Housing Department with Pamela Weidman, our Transportation Department with Liz Babson, and our Planning Department with Taiwo Jayoba to really make sure that we were aligning our investments in the corridors of opportunity in a way that would meet these overarching community goals that we pulled from previous planning efforts. Next slide. So you may wonder, how do you plan to tackle all of these things at one time? We worked together to develop a strategy. We needed a strategy to understand how we could best improve the corridors of opportunity, but also see transformative change faster. Everyone historically said, you've been investing, but we just don't see it. So we wanted to coordinate our efforts while understanding that every corridor is different. Every corridor needs a customized approach. So we started to dig into the data and really capitalize on our past investments to see how we could meet current community goals. So that included leveraging public-private partnerships, deploying our business matching grant program, involving residents in public space master planning processes to really ensure that we were impacting our communities in a way that was holistic and comprehensive. Next slide. So we've been hearing a lot. How much have you invested in Beatties Ford Road? What are you doing in Beatties Ford Road with these corridors of opportunity? So just to give you an idea, and I brought some colleagues along with me tonight to give you more specifics, but we've looked at economic development. Councilmember Graham has spoken of our commitment to 2 developments at the intersection of Beatties Ford and LaSalle. We've also committed financing help for 5 Point Center, which is owned by Sankofa at the intersection of Roswells Ferry. We're also supporting the CGE development, which it will be at the intersection of Booker Avenue and Beatties Ford Road. You may have also heard about our Urban Main Street program, and you may have also heard about a labor market study from our Economic Development Department, and you'll hear a little bit more about that this evening. In addition, we've been investing in housing. We have units that are coming online off of Custer Avenue, which will bring some single family to the area. We've invested in our housing programs like TLC by CLT, and we're also supporting the Westside Land Trust to bring affordable units to our area. In addition, we're investing in infrastructure, and we're also investing in that community development. So all of this comes to the tune of over $10 million invested in Beatties Ford as it relates to the Corridors of Opportunity program. That doesn't diminish the fact that we have other programs and initiatives that will continue in this area, but that just shows the level of commitment that we know Beatties Ford deserves and how we are trying to move the needle forward and kickstart additional investments in the corridor. So with that, I'll bring some more of my colleagues along to give you a little bit more information about specific projects that you'll see take place in the Beatties Ford and LaSalle corridor. So to talk more about our economic development projects, we have Aaron Gillespie to tell you more about Urban Main Street and our labor market study.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm glad to give you guys some exciting updates on our urban Maine work. So my name is Erin Gillespie. I work in our economic development department. I work on our corridors program, and we've been working with the Beatties Ford LaSalle community to bring urban Maine to the business district since 2019. This has been a community-led effort to bring a new commercial revitalization strategy to Beatties Ford and LaSalle, and to build up that business district using the nationally recognized Main Street model. That model, which has been operating in cities and downtowns and urban commercial corridors and districts since the 1970s, is based on a 4-point approach. Those 4 points: design, promotion, economic vitality, and organization, form the structure for all of the work that happens within the district. So we've been working on building out those 4 subcommittees, as well as a program of work and some projects that support the goals of each of those 4 points. And then last year, we also completed the Transformation Strategy Report with the help of National Main Street Center. That report recommends 2 strategies to move forward that kind of tie together all 4 of those subcommittees and those 4 points into a tailored approach that responds to the needs and then also the vision for Beatties Ford LaSalle specifically. That report, which you can find on our website, recommends 2 transformation strategies. The first one is focusing on bringing neighborhood goods and services to the district. So making sure that the businesses and commercial activity in the district is a directly response to the needs and wants of the neighbors who live around it. And it's important that it's based off of the feedback of the current and existing neighbors. The second strategy supports equitable entrepreneurship, so building and growing businesses and a commercial, vibrant commercial ecosystem from within. And so that's another strategy that is driving all of the work under the Urban Maine umbrella. The most important thing for us to focus on now with Urban Maine is identifying that on-the-ground organization that will take the ball and roll with it. That organization will be the ones who carry out the day-to-day work supporting those 2 strategies and the work of all 4 points and all of those projects that fall under those teams. So the RFP for identifying that district organization is live on our website right now. It might be hard to see if you're able to see the slide, but the website is charlottenc.gov/urbanmaine. And we can make sure that's shared later as well. So that application will be due February 12th. The RFP was developed with our advisory committee and the organization subcommittee. So it was created with those community stakeholders. Last year, we also held a virtual community meeting back in November, so you may have joined us for that as well, and all of this will be old news to you. That virtual community meeting was back in November. It was hosted by our advisory committee and our 4 teams. We had 45 attendees join us that night. We went over that transformation strategy report in a little bit more detail. And then we also broke out into 4 breakout rooms and discussed kind of where things are and where things can go next. And then we also have our 4 subcommittees that have continued to stay active throughout all of quarantine. So we have placemaking projects being installed by the design team. We have a number of community outreach efforts happening with some partner organizations. And then the organization team is really focused on, getting the program to the next level with the RFP and hosting that community meeting. And many more things to come. There are lots of opportunities to get involved, especially looking into the next 12 months. We'll have National Main Street Center re-engaged to host a series of workshops on developing the district and really formalizing it, doing a lot of training and seminars on how to build out the district and the 4 points, as well as some more opportunities for business development and entrepreneurship, really trying to build up that entrepreneurial ecosystem that is centered at Beatties, Ford, and LaSalle. And then the last update, one thing that the city will be working on, because even though this is community-led and really the district is in the driver's seat for Urban Maine, the city is excited to be able to continue to support the program in the ways that are based off of the city's best strengths. And so one thing we can do are continue to do our business security analyses and some of that CEPTED type work in our partnership with CMPD. It's something that is already built into our business matching grant program, but that's on an individual building by building basis. And so what we'll be working on internally is how can we provide that same service on a district-wide level. So keep an ear out or an eye out for that. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, Erin.Gillespie@charlottenc.gov, and happy to get you tied into any of the 4 teams. And then our next economic development update is something that my colleague is leading. We can go to the next slide here. Perfect. So we also have a labor study going on. Another important aspect of our corridors of opportunity is a real focus on jobs and understanding the challenges and barriers to either gaining or maintaining employment that might be unique to folks living in our corridors geography. So my colleague Alyssa Brown is leading a study with Ernst & Young to look into those barriers and challenges and really identify and hone in on the specific or unique issues here. It's a focus on the corridors geography, but a priority focus on the West Charlotte area, and then the Sugar Creek, North Tryon, North Graham geography as well. They sent out a resident survey, so you might have seen that come by. I know a lot of folks shared it, and thank you if you did share it with your networks. But right now what they have, they're sort of in the middle of the study, and so what they've got open right now is a survey for business owners and employers. So if you are a business owner or employer, you can take that survey to help us better understand what kind of issues or challenges you're seeing as well. They'll use this study to identify and analyze economic development opportunities and ways to address those barriers to grow economic opportunity and bring more jobs to the corridors. A big component of this study is also a real estate search, so we can start identifying now prime locations for future job sites. And so when, because this is being supported and led by our business recruitment team, this is a great way for them to be very proactive as they do their recruitment work, and they know exactly what opportunities exist and how they might address those barriers and challenges that residents are facing. And the study should be completed by April. So keep an eye out for those study results and next steps.
Thank you so much, Erin, for giving us those updates about Urban Main Street as well as the labor study. And I hope that whet you guys' appetites because we're going to be moving to community safety. We know that Beatties Ford and LaSalle and in general for corridors and for healthy communities, we really want to have a safe place to work, to live, to play. So I will introduce Lacey Williams to give you an update around some of the programs and initiatives that the city has taking place on Beatties Ford Road.
Great, thanks, Cherry. You can advance the slide. Hey, everybody, I'm Lacey Williams. I work in the Office of Equity, Mobility, and Immigrant Integration. Super excited to be here with you guys today. Hello to Facebook land. I know we got 20 or more folks watching us. So thanks for your initiative to be here tonight to learn more about your community and to give us good feedback. So I'm doing a lot of the work on community safety projects with my colleagues, and we have several initiatives that are running in the corridors of opportunity and specifically Beatties Ford Road. I'm going to highlight 4 of them for you tonight. We have a Jumpstart Community Safety Grant program currently up and running, Charlotte Equity Fellows, Cure Violence implementation. And then I won't talk about this tonight, but we are in the works of developing a Safe Charlotte grant initiative, which I'm sure Cherry will give you more information about in the future as that comes online. Next slide. So I'll start with the Jumpstart Community Safety Microgrants. It's a really exciting program started in 2018. We provide a microgrant opportunity twice a year to community-based organizations that are doing community safety work. And this year, we've started pivoting to really focus those grants in the corridors of opportunity geographies. These grants are available citywide, but we do prioritize the corridors of opportunity, especially 28216. Grants range from $1,000 for newcomers, so new applicants are eligible to receive up to $1,000 to $5,000. So if folks have gotten several grants before, we have created this opportunity to scale to really support their work in a more deep way. All of the grants go to organizations that are doing a project in one of the following areas: crime prevention, conflict mediation, providing opportunities for youth and parents, supporting family stability, and addressing racial segregation. Since 2018, we have funded over 250 projects with about $350,000 in investments. We are at the tail end of a cycle right now. So we have 63 completed applications vying for about $150,000 worth of grant money. And a good portion of those folks are doing work right in 28216. Next slide. The other pilot project we've gotten off this year is the Charlotte Equity Fellowship. The city funded a fellowship program with the Center for Racial Equity in Education, also known as CREED. We have 4 fellows who have been hired and trained as community organizers, and they're organizing specifically in 28216. The fellows are working on projects related to economic mobility and racial equity. And what's exciting is each fellow is being paid a living wage for part-time work and being given a programming budget. So the idea behind the fellowship is really to invest in community folks who live and work and play in 28216 to help create some organizing infrastructure to connect the dots to build something that would last beyond just, this project or that project. What we want to really do is help support the development of and cultivation of people power in that community. Fellows are working on education issues. They're working on data and storytelling. They're working on connecting entrepreneurs to opportunity. Runs the gamut of economic mobility and racial equity. Next slide. So I think you jumped a slide, Wendy. Can you go back one? Go back 2, actually. All right, now go forward 1. I feel like this is like a dance. Thanks for everybody for hanging in. You know, technology is a fun time in this moment of COVID. So something that's super exciting. And thank you to Representative Malcolm Graham for being a big supporter of this. Is we are bringing online a really incredible violence interruption program. And we are piloting it in 28216. We're piloting it in the Beatties Ford LaSalle corridor. So I'm talking about Cure Violence Global. Cure Violence Global offers an evidence-based methodology to addressing violence in a community. It's a, should say, hyper local model in that it will be working in a very defined, probably 4 to 5 block radius off of that intersection. Cure Violence as an organization is operating sites, or they've helped stand up sites, I'd rather say, all over the world with success. And they've been independently evaluated by the Department of Justice, Temple University, Northwestern University, Johns Hopkins, CDC, John Jay College, among others. It uses a public health approach and an epidemiological approach to violence. Basically, what that means is violence is catching, just like COVID is catching. So if you've been exposed to violence, you're more likely to commit violence. And so they're taking the moral or the judgment out of violence and looking at how can we set up and intervene like we would in any sort of epidemic type of situation. The main crux of what Cure Violence does is it uses credible messengers to act as interrupters before violence happens. So that basically means that what we would do is we would employ people who live in that corridor, who've grown up there, who have deep relationships in that corridor, to be the people on the street mediating conflict before violence happens. Next slide. So this is sort of the model that they use. This is the Cure Violence Street Outreach model. They have 3 specific things trying to do. Interrupting transmission. So again, that's taking that epidemiological approach. They want to stop violence before it happens. Changing community norms by creating positive and social pressures and alternatives. So often we're saying, you know, don't commit violence in this community. But the reality is the vast majority of the people that are living in that community are not committing violence. So how do we continue to use positive framing to really change the perceptions of a community and change the norms of what's happening in that community? And then identify and change the thinking of high-risk individuals, because we want to, at the end of the day, reduce the number of violent individuals. So, you know, this is a more long-term approach where we would have community outreach workers who are identifying folks that are high risk in that they may belong to a gang or a clique, may have committed violence in the past, and have decided that they want to sort of change the course of their life. So those folks would be enrolled more in a more hands-on program to get a plan for how they're going to reduce the risk of them committing violence. And then all of this really goes towards reducing violence in the target areas, again, that being the Beatties Ford LaSalle area. We completed an assessment, again, thanks to the help of Councilmember Graham, but also some other folks on this call like Cherry and Aisha. We completed that assessment in the fall. Recommendations were provided to council in November. Next slide, because I think that gets to the, so recommendations were completed in November. This is what this model is going to look like. So there's basically 3 partners in this. So there's the government side, that's the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. We're going to be funding the program. We're going to be contracting with a local organization to run the program, and with Cure Violence for training and technical assistance. We're going to provide all the funds and additional support as needed to that community-based organization. And then we're going to be working to connect this particular program to other programs as it makes sense to create the maximum impact. And I think that's the real beauty behind Corridors of Opportunity. It's the intersecting of all this different work. Cure Violence, like I said, they are the ones with the model that's working across the world. They're going to be providing the training. They're going to be with us every step of the way as we stand up this office. They're going to be providing their evidence-based model. And we'll be contracting with a community-based organization. So an organization that's already up and running in 28216, they will be implementing the Cure Violence Interruption Program. They'll be hiring and managing local interrupters for the program. Next slide. So the next steps for this, we are about to launch in mid to late February, a request for proposal for local organizations to host this program. So watch this space. Cure Violence will provide the technical assistance and training to that host organization to implement the program. And then the program will launch in Beatties Ford and LaSalle corridor in the spring. So that is all for Cure Violence. I think that might be all for me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Lacey. I appreciate you taking the time to really show how the city is committed to making our community safer. And next up, we have Erin Chantry from our planning department to talk about our public spaces and placemaking and public space activation. Thanks, Erin.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm really excited to talk to you tonight about the Beatties Ford Road Public Space and Placemaking Master Plan. Next slide. So this is always a quote that I love to start with when we're talking about placemaking, and it's from Fred Kent at the Project for Public Spaces, one of the best placemaking firms in the world. And he says, everyone has the right to live in a great place. More importantly, everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great. So that's really what placemaking is all about, is about providing the funding, the opportunities, and the mechanisms for people to really make where they live even better than it already is through building community and creating place. Next slide. So the purpose and goals of this work, first and foremost, we have funding for placemaking from Corridors of Opportunity program, and we really want to make sure that we spend it on projects equitably and in a way that responds best to the community desires and community needs. And so the purpose and the goals of this project is going to be identifying underutilized land along the corridor that can be leveraged better to meet community and city goals, basically underperforming public land that can be used in a better way. Creating public spaces that first and foremost celebrate the history, culture, and identity of the corridor. Supporting businesses and creating an environment that's attractive to future businesses by improving the public realm or activating the public realm, and increasing opportunities for walkability and connectivity along the corridor. So placemaking and improving public space in the public realm is a way that we can implement all of these goals. Next. So the study is focusing on the corridor between Highway 16 and Interstate 85 with a focus on the LaSalle Street and Oak Lawn Avenue intersections, 1.5 miles long in total. And so we'll be studying this corridor in 4 different sections, so 4 segments, Highway 16 to Tate, Tate to Estelle, Estelle to Catherine Simmons, and Catherine Simmons to I-85. Next. So just kind of breaking those down and having a look. So when we're talking about placemaking along the corridor, we're really talking about the public realm that is facing the street of the corridor. So we're really focusing along the whole corridor, but about 1 parcel back. And so it's not it doesn't go deep and wide. It's really looking at the public realm directly adjacent to the corridor. So this is the first segment. Next. Segment 2, Tate Avenue to Estelle. Next. Estelle Street to Catherine Simmons with a larger focus on that intersection. And the last segment is Catherine Simmons to I-85. So just kind of wanted to put some kind of boundaries on the map so that you can see exactly the areas that we're talking about. Next. So I put those on there to kind of explain a process. So in normal times, we would be meeting out in person and walking the corridor together and coming up with ideas together, having some good food. And unfortunately, we're just not able to do that. So we're having to get a little innovative with the process. So we are essentially doing it in two parts. So the first part will be done on your own. So there is a survey. The link will be at the end of this, and you've probably gotten in your email from someone that you know already. But there is a survey that's going to be asking you, obviously, everything about the corridor from a placemaking perspective to really set some goals for this placemaking master plan. And it will also ask you to request one of those segments of the corridor to kind of think about and study it a little bit more. We have a placemaking presentation and some history resources that we have put together for you all to watch. I'm sure you're very well versed in the history, but because that's so important, we just want to, emphasize that. And there's also a presentation on placemaking, just in case you don't, it's kind of a confusing term. So just kind of going through placemaking and what it is and the different types of placemaking and how we can improve the public realm. And then we're asking you to walk that segment of your corridor and fill out a worksheet that really kind of looks for special places along the corridor, places we want to enhance, places we want to celebrate, places we want to improve, and have you think about project ideas and how we can do that. And then taking pictures of those places. You'll send them into the city. So that is me, basically. So that is part one, right? So that you will get to do in your own time. And hopefully the flexibility of that will allow people to participate, because I know that everyone is pulled in a million directions right now. Part two is a community virtual workshop. So we will spend basically all the time between February and 15th and the 27th to go through all of your project ideas, organize them, map them, basically present them in a way that can be presented to the community. And then on February 27th, from 9 to 12, we're asking people to participate virtually to prioritize and rank those projects for implementation. So we will have a project list that we will be able to use corridors of opportunity funding for to implement right away. Hopefully we'll have future funding to implement those. We're hoping this can be a useful tool for the Urban Maine design team and anyone else who's already doing wonderful placemaking work along the corridor. So it'll be used as a tool to make sure that we spend this money equitably in a way that the community wants and needs. And then also kind of to serve as a playbook and a framework for future investment for placemaking and public space specifically. Next. So just a timeline. We have identified stakeholders and introducing the project to the greater community, putting together our virtual materials. And February is when that phase one work begins, and we have our workshop, and then we'll take those projects away and create a master plan that in March, so that we're ready to implement our placemaking work this summer. Next slide. We've done this a few times across the city already. We've done it for South End, and we've also just completed it in West Boulevard, the West Boulevard corridor. So we'll basically have a playbook of projects that you all have identified by going out and walking the corridor. We'll develop them a little more. We'll think about partners. We'll think about possible funding and long-term goals for those projects. We'll be able to identify them, rank them, and then pick out some priority projects that we really think will be the most transformational. And when I say we, I mean us as the community in that virtual workshop. Next. So in summary, it's a game plan for how the community, businesses, and partners can leverage publicly owned and controlled land for community use, whether that's a parcel, whether that's leftover right of way, whether it's a sidewalk, really thinking about how the public realm can be transformed in however way represents the identity of you. Next. So just kind of going through project partners and people we've reached out to and we've worked with to create this process. Next. So this is the really, really important part. The survey has been up for a couple of weeks and we've been reaching out, but here is the survey link. And we've asked people to respond by tomorrow, but we'll be leaving it up all weekend at the beginning of next week. So if you can fill it out tomorrow or this weekend, that will be great. And then I will assign you a segment of the corridor. You'll also have the opportunity in the survey to let us know you'll be attending the workshop, and that should say February 27th. And then I will also give you access to the pre-workshop materials, which is the placemaking presentation and some of the resources we've collected on the history of the corridor. And so phase 1 materials, which is basically that worksheet and pictures that you collect and walking your segment of the corridor, you can send back on February 15th, and we will pull all of that together for our workshop. So a little more complex than it normally would be. We would normally, spend a whole day together doing this, but I appreciate you being nimble and working with us during these crazy times when we have to rely on technology a bit too much. Next. I think that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Erin, so much. And again, please respond to the survey. That's how we can make sure that your voice is heard, make sure that you are a part of the process and how we activate our public spaces. So you've heard about economic development, you've heard about safety, you've heard about our planning department and public space master planning. So next, we have some folks here to talk about community development efforts and specifically asset-based community development. So I'd like to introduce you to Kellen Nixon of Nixon and Company to tell you more about that project that we have going on Beatties Ford Road.
Awesome. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Happy to join in the space with you all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that we are so excited as a group to take on here in the Beatties Ford corridor. It is titled Moving Commitments to Action. And this is really focused on how do we leverage the best of the Beatties Ford corridor. And we all know that the best part of that corridor is its community members. So this is a partnership between my group, I'm the principal of the group, the City of Charlotte, and the Knight Foundation. We have the pleasure of working with the Historic West End Neighborhood Association, which is a consortium made up of 18 different neighborhoods. It's voluntary, but it doesn't take long if you ever have had any interaction with this group of community members. The passion and the understanding of how special the Beatties Ford community is, you sense that from the second you meet each of them. So let's get right into, maybe starting off with the definition of asset-based community development. Next one. This is a strategy for sustainable community-driven development that goes beyond the mobilization of a particular community and is more concerned with how to link micro assets to the macro environment. So what that really means is we have a lot of assets in Beatties Ford. We have a lot of assets from a historical standpoint. Many of the homes that still stand were either built or once occupied by many of the community members who have laid the foundation to us actually being on this call tonight and seeing, a promise in this community. We also know that there are many assets in the sense of skills and the art and cultural space that literally represent the city of Charlotte. So as we think through how to literally engage and empower those assets, the number one thing that we're trying to accomplish and that we will accomplish over the next 12 months is being able to write the story of Beatties Ford from the community members' perspective, not the sensational news reels that may have, crossed the television once or twice, maybe even more, but really talking more about what does it really mean to be a community member in Beatties Ford, and why is that the choice that community members are making to call Beatties Ford home? What are the assets and opportunities that are unique to that community? Next slide. So when we think about our key activities, the number one goal here is we're going to develop a, asset-based community development strategy that builds on the assets that are already founded throughout the corridor, and mobilize individuals, associations, and institutions while doing so. So the unique opportunity that we have is in a sense beginning to tap into kind of some of those opportunities and those assets that have lied dormant for many moons, as it relates to a number of initiatives that may or may not have considered the worth of this very, very, very special community. The way that we're going to do that is by utilizing a World Cafe model to offer structural conversations and gatherings that we're going to call the Beatties Ford Road Soda Shops. This effort is really about building trust and encouraging community fellowship. I grew up in a community very similar to Beatties Ford, and that was the element of community that, in a sense, afforded it to thrive. At least in my own upbringing and what I've seen there in Beatties Ford is that, having community members come out and have conversations around some of the more challenging areas of their community is the first step in identifying these assets, because we can't continue to look for the solution outside of the community. This is really bringing the solutions to the core of the community, and where most of them lie, just based on them being community members as a whole. This will also engage the wider Beatties Ford community as ABCD partners, as opposed to being viewed as passive recipients of the project's outcomes. So many of the projects that this community has taken on, they have really been kind of viewed as the recipients of the services or the resources. This model will flip that on its head a bit and talk about what are those unique assets that only community members that call Beatties Ford home can bring forth. What are the truths? What are the stories? What are the historical elements of this community that we have to ground our efforts in, and we have to build our work around? So that's gonna shift the perspective, not only of those in the community, but those outside of the community as we do this work. And then we're going to also position Hawina as a key community asset to grow and sustain the proposed work that we're going to be doing. Next slide. I think we skipped one. Go back. Okay, so maybe we didn't put that slide. So as a result of doing this work, two of the key outcomes will be a community asset map, where we will be working with those 18 neighborhoods and the leaders of each of those neighborhoods that represent Hawina to develop a list of community assets, and then begin to think about how we leverage them around some of the key priorities of the community, whether it be safety, many of the things that you all talked about, that we talked about this evening, sorry. And then we're also going to be developing a 3 to 5 year strategic plan that kind of builds out a roadmap to these community assets that really talks about the importance of alignment, right? Making sure that we're aligning efforts, that community members are coming together and supporting these assets as we've defined them, but also giving them a space to continue to co-create and build resources that will service the community for many moons. So, the goal of this work is really, in a sense, grounding it in a way that not only can it be sustained, but there's a culture that we build around what does it mean to be a community asset in Beatties Ford. So I think with the next slide, I am passing it off to Aisha.
Ellen, thank you so much for that overview of this important asset-based community development work, and really demonstrating how we're going to move commitments to action. And good evening, everyone. My name is Aisha Sabor, and I work in the Community Engagement Division of Housing and Neighborhood Services. And as some of you know, I serve as your Northwest Community Engagement Liaison. It's been great to be here tonight to talk about all the work, all the projects, all the investment that's being put into the Beatties Ford Road corridor. And what I love most about the ABCD work that Kellen just reviewed is that it is truly community driven. So that means we can't move this work forward without you. So I just want to use the brief couple of minutes that I have left as a call to action. If this work sparks your interest, if you have questions, if you want to get involved, now is absolutely the time for you to plug in, especially since it's the beginning phases of this effort. So please reach out to your neighborhood leadership and find out how you can get involved. You can also feel free to reach out to either myself or Randy Harris. We are your community engagement service area team. And our information, our contact information is on the slide below at the bottom. And we'd be happy to connect you and plug you in so that you can get involved in this work as well. As your service area team, we're going to be here to provide support and connect you with resources to build capacity so that you all can continue to grow thriving communities. And we'll also be here to support Kellen's work throughout this process by providing neighborhood trainings. We will share information, important information as it pertains to this process, and we'll leverage our grant program to ensure success. So I am very excited to be a part of this initiative, and I'm looking forward to continue working with you all. And I hope to see some new faces and meet some new people. And I hope this work excites you as much as it excites me. Thank you.
Thank you both, Aisha and Kellen. And again, please get involved, reach out to Aisha so that you can make sure that your voice is heard, and we can make sure that we are positively impacting our community. So we've heard about all of the safety, the community, the public spaces, and we finally have transportation. Infrastructure is what supports the growth of our city, and we know that the Beatties Ford corridor is growing every single day. So I would like to bring Ashley Landis from our Charlotte Department of Transportation to tell you about the projects that we have coming to Beatties Ford through the Corridors of Opportunity program.
Thanks, Cherry. My name's Ashley Landis. Like she said, I'm with the Charlotte Department of Transportation, and I'm the design section manager. And we have 5 new infrastructure projects that we'll be doing in the Beatties Ford corridor. They're shown on this map and listed to the side. So 3 of those are intersection projects. They include a variety of improvements. One I want to point out is a new traffic signal at Catherine Simmons. That's some feedback we've gotten from the public, and it's something that we're going to be advancing through this program. So we're really excited about that. We're also going to be replacing some sidewalk on Beatties Ford Road, and we're going to be installing a bike boulevard. Next slide. So the first items we talked about were those intersection improvements. So this is a list of what those might look like. We're going to be looking to upgrade it for pedestrians by installing nice new crosswalks with new accessible ramps, as well as the pedestrian push buttons and LPI. LPI is leading pedestrian interval. It's a really neat technology. Charlotte is one of the first, if not first, cities to do this. We have a quick video we're going to share with you of what that's all about. But I also want to point out in this picture, the mast arm. So these are a really nice feature. We don't get to do these often. We're super excited that we're going to be bringing these out here. They're shown in the picture. These are the nice heavy metal poles for the traffic signals instead of those wires and wood poles. We're going to be upgrading. So you'll see these throughout the corridor at all of those intersections. Next slide. Are you guys able to cue up that video?
In a rapidly growing city like Charlotte, it is critical to provide safe, convenient, and reliable transportation options. Part of that is making sure our streets are safe and accessible for people of all ages and abilities, whether they're walking, biking, or traveling by bus or car. For example, this includes improving intersections to help reduce crashes. One way we're doing that is by using a leading pedestrian interval, a new feature being added to select intersections. A leading pedestrian interval gives pedestrians a head start when entering an intersection. This makes pedestrians more visible to drivers and reinforces their priority over vehicles within the intersection. In fact, intersections with this system have been shown to reduce pedestrian vehicle collisions by as much as 60%. Here's how the system works. First, pedestrians should always press the crosswalk button when available. This lets the signal know there are pedestrians waiting to cross. Then, pedestrians get a minimum 3-second head start entering the intersection. The conflicting traffic has a red light during this time. After the leading pedestrian interval time, or head start, traffic going in the same direction is given the green light, and turning traffic yields to pedestrians who are already in the crosswalk. At intersections where heavy right turning volumes create additional safety concerns, a no turn on red sign may also be installed. This provides additional protection for pedestrians. The City of Charlotte is dedicated to finding additional ways to increase the safety of our residents when traveling throughout Charlotte. Learn more at charlottenc.gov/transportation.
Okay, and the next one that we're going to talk about are the sidewalk improvements. We are going to be replacing some of the existing back of curb sidewalk that's in really poor condition and go back with a grass planting strip, planting trees, and then have a nice new wide sidewalk. So this is going to be really close to the activity center. It should look something very similar to what you're seeing in the picture here. Next slide. And then the final project is the Bike Boulevard. This is really about providing a comfortable bicycle network that parallels Beatty Ford. So we'll be using things like pavement markings, crossing treatments, signage, and bike signal detection to help facilitate a new way for cyclists to travel and it be very apparent what the routes are in this area of Charlotte. Next slide. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for telling us all about the different infrastructure projects that we have going on in the corridors of opportunity. For all of those that are listening in, please drop questions in your respective chat boxes so that we can get those back out to our panelists. And before we get to our question and answer session, I would like to welcome Mayor Pro Tem Julie Eisel, who joined us for this meeting. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you so much for taking the time to log in and learn more about this exciting project in Corridors of Opportunity specific to Beatties Ford. And I would like to give you a moment to speak if you would like to say hello to our crowd this evening.
Oh, thank you. No, I wasn't prepared to do that. I'm just excited to really have this opportunity to catch up on this really fantastic presentation. And I think it's, I guess the last that I have is that the investments being made that have to do with entrepreneurship and business investments, all of that is fantastic, but even just replacing sidewalks that are not back of curb and are in bad condition and just, allowing pedestrians to cross safely is all about creating a community where people not only feel safe, but feel excited about living in. So thank you for this great presentation. Great work.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Eisel. And again, thank you to Councilmember Graham, to Councilmember Bakari. We appreciate your support of the Corridors of Opportunity program. I know we're currently in budget discussions, and I know you guys have a commitment to continuing to fund this program to see great work come to fruition in our wonderful city. So I sincerely appreciate your commitment and dedication to the work. So now we can move to our question and answer session. And first up to bat, we have a question for the wonderful Lacey Williams. One of our listeners asked, how can I participate in the violence interruption program work? I don't know what's going on there, but as we work to get your sound taken care of, we'll shift over to Aaron Gillespie. We have a question about the Urban Main Street program. We've heard a lot about the Urban Main project over the years. It sounds promising. When are we expected to see visible change from the project?
Okay, so yes, like I mentioned, we have our current Urban Main initiative that's focused on Beatties, Ford, and LaSalle has been active since about 2019, 2018. So it has been a long time coming, and our initial transformation strategy report timeline actually was stretched out a little bit longer than anticipated. And that was in response to the community feedback and our advisory committee feedback asking for the city to do more focus on education and awareness of what the model is, because it really is a new model. The Main Street model has never been implemented in the city of Charlotte. It's always historically been focused on small cities, smaller towns, more rural locations in our state. And so this really is a new initiative, and it is honestly, listening to some of the other updates, it really can be the glue that brings so many of these elements together, because it does focus on the built environment. You know, it focuses on safety. It has a huge safety component. The Main Street model is built on asset-based community development. That is a huge proponent of that model. And then it's all about placemaking and business organization and business vitality. So making sure that once we have all of those pieces of the puzzle for the commercial district, the entrepreneurs and business owners and residents are really, front and center on making sure they're participating and benefiting. And that's through participation in those 4 committees and just supporting those projects as they're advanced. Some of the first projects were more traditional placemaking projects. So really starting to bring out the story of what the district is, and also starting to engage the communities and residents and business owners. So that's been a big proponent. I think our volunteer teams, were heavily impacted with the inability to gather in person for almost 12 months now. They've really made sure that they're respecting the safety and wellness of the nearby residents. But I think they've also done a great job just keeping things together. Once we have that district organization on the ground, I think we'll start to see activity pick up, and it'll become more. This really is just the beginning of this process. So I know that's a very long-winded answer, but hopefully that kind of gets to it. I know it's, the city really, truly, to make this a successful project, we've had to work to build the infrastructure internally and externally. And now that we're getting there, we are so excited to, take a step back and let everybody lead, because it really is an exciting way and a new way to really build up that thriving commercial and business district at Beatties, Ford, and LaSalle.
Thank you so much, Erin. And I will say it wasn't long-winded. We'll call it comprehensive. And we'll circle back to Lacey Williams on the question about the violence interruption. How can a person participate in the violence interruption program work? And then we also have a follow-up question to that. And how do you identify the right people to serve as violence interrupters?
Both great questions. Hopefully you can hear me. Thumbs up? Yes. Okay, great. Fantastic. So the easiest question to answer is hit me up over email, lacey.williams, lacey.williams@charlottenc.gov. If you are interested in more information, or if you are interested in participating, and definitely if you're interested in possibly hosting the work and going for that RFP. So that again, that's lacey.williams@charlottenc.gov. In terms of identifying the right people, that is actually 100% crucial to the success of this program. Cure Violence Global, like I said, has set up successful programs all over the world. So this model works for Chicago, it works for Jackson, Mississippi, it works for Jacksonville, Florida, it's working for Baltimore. They're setting things up in St. Louis. Our friends in Durham have just expanded their program. So big or small place, their model works. They have a specific sort of criteria and spidey senses that they use when trying to identify the right folks that are interrupters. The profile of a good violence interrupter is someone who is from that neighborhood, or who has longevity in that neighborhood, who has deep relationships with people. So they can walk down the street and they know the people that live and work there, and who have relationships with people who are potentially engaging in violent behavior. And so one of the things that is common for violence interrupters is to have been justice involved, and perhaps have a criminal record, and including possibly some time in incarcerated. So those folks uh, are very connected to each other. So one of the things Cure Violence helps us do is identify potential folks like that who are in the area, who may be able to help us make connections with folks that are on the ground and have credibility. The big thing for this is credibility. So it's not about taking someone from a completely different part of the town and sliding them into Beatties Ford Road. We know that that's not going to work. That's not going to work for placemaking. It's not going to work for transportation, and it's 100% not going to work for violence interruption. So if you have an idea on how we might identify people that are credible in the community, that have connections to folks who might be involved in cliques or gangs, or who might, be making, not great decisions, please also email me at lacey.williams@charlottenc.gov. And in the time I was speaking, Cherry, is there another question? Is there a triple follow-up, or am I good?
No, ma'am, you're good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I won't say that that's no for the rest of our time, but it's at least no for now. Our next question is for Erin Chantry. Are there any open placemaking opportunities for local artists?
Well, there definitely will be. We with this placemaking work that we're doing in all of the corridors, almost all of them, I'm sure, will involve the work of a local artist. So I definitely suggest, if you haven't already, to be on our placemaking program mailing list. If you go to charlottenc.gov/placemaking, you can sign up there. We will probably open our local artist pool again soon. And what that is that it's basically a call to local artists to apply to be in a pool that we use to implement our placemaking over the year. So, and now, if you're not in that pool, that certainly doesn't mean that you can't participate. If basically we use it to either implement city-led work or pair communities with artists when they need one. So anyway, definitely go there. And but yes, the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Erin, for the short and the long answer. We appreciate both of them. Thanks. So we have a question for Ashley Landis about the sidewalks. How will the sidewalks and street improvements be impacted by Gold Line Phase 3? I think you're still muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I guess if we do this like another 2 years, I'll finally remember that. Sorry. So that's actually a CATS project. It's not a DOT project. However, we work hand in hand with them. It's not a project that I'm familiar with and could speak to as far as the interruption with the traffic. It's something we'd have to get back to you with.
Understandable. Thank you. And we do have a follow-up question as it relates to the sidewalks. Where are the sidewalks and planting strips being installed, and where's the bike lane to be installed?
Okay, with the sidewalk project, we are currently looking at doing a segment that is between LaSalle Street and just south of St. Paul Street, where the Northwestern School of the Arts High School is. So it'll be that segment. We're hoping to get in planting strips through that whole section. If you're familiar with the area, you know there's going to be some challenges with homes being really close to the street and some topography, but we think we're going to be able to get it in there. There may be some places that get a little tight, but we've taken a pretty good look at it and feel good about it. As far as the bike lanes, these projects would not be bike lanes. They would be things like sharrows in the street. So in my presentation, I had a diagram that showed a bike symbol with 2 arrows. Those are put on the pavement as a indication to cyclists, this is where we expect you to be, and to motorists, hey motors, this is where we expect cyclists to be. So those are types of treatments that we would use on those parallel streets to Beatties Ford to help kind of guide cyclists on a path that would be less volume of vehicular traffic that you would see on Beatties Ford.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And then one follow-up question that I know people will have for the sidewalks. Okay. Is there a plan to continue sidewalks outside of that one section?
We would love to. I think we've evaluated what the next phase of that might be. We don't have funding identified for that, but we definitely hope to have the opportunity to continue on the project that we are funded at today.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Our next question is for Aisha Sabor. How do we get past those who just hold leadership positions and to the neighborhood leaders?
Sure. Well, for one, I would say that when it comes to asset-based community development, you being on this call and taking the initiative to want to get involved in this work, you should identify yourself as an asset. And certainly plug in, and you can reach out to me and I can connect you with some neighborhood leadership or members of your neighborhood that will move this work forward, and we'll get you connected.
Thank you so much. I know that's important work as an engagement liaison, and we appreciate your efforts to always bring the resources to people and make sure that they have the proper connections. So Kellen, you are next up. We have a question for you. When will work start to develop the, let me rephrase it. When will work start to develop the community asset map, and how can I be involved in its creation?
Love that. Awesome. So just a quick kind of update of where we are. So we have launched into our initial meeting with Kawina, and we've had some conversations around what are those initial steps? How do we need to lay the foundation and groundwork to getting community members to the table? So we are literally we're coming outside of our first meeting and working our way into our second one for this upcoming weekend. But ultimately, connecting to Hawina as well as connecting with Aisha, who's at the center of this work as well, I think is the best way to gain some proximity to how we move forward. And to be quite honest, As I said in the last meeting with Rowena, you know, my next step is I'll be in the community turning over rocks and shaking bushes to let everybody know that we're doing this work. So, you know, look out for the guy in the black hat, because I will be coming through the community, asking a number of questions and trying to get as proximate to the community members as possible. But there will be additional information for those soda shop talks and different things that we're going to be doing as far as activities.
Fantastic. And one final question to close this out. And again, Kellen, it's for you. Everybody's excited about this asset-based community development work. What is your approach to building trust with the World Cafes, and what would that look like with residents?
Oh, love that, love that. So a part of it is our goal is to kind of create some discussion points that are of common interest to the community, whether it be safety, whether it be you know, workforce development opportunities. We're going to pick some topics that we feel the community is really interested in discussing. And then we're going to explore ways in which we can just be vulnerable and authentic to where we are and accessing those resources, right? So a part of our work is going to be just creating a space initially that affords you to come in with your truth. There will be a number of conversation and communication norms that we're going to be leveraging so that it's an equity of voice, because I think oftentimes the mistrust oftentimes falls to the individual who often is just sitting in the room and being told what's happening versus really engaging in the conversation. So in my mind, the trust building activity is going to be creating some equity of voice across the community members, but then also affording information to flow freely from community leaders to community members and affording everyone to weigh in as it relates to their response or their reality to that work or to that resource.
All right, thank you so much, Kellen. And way to close us out on a high note. For everyone that is tuning in, I'd like to again thank you for taking the time to listen to all of this wonderful information about the Corridors of Opportunity program. I hope that we've gotten you excited. I hope that we've gotten you activated, and I hope that you will plug into this work in any way that you would like to, that would resonate you, so that we can continue to grow our community, but also continue to pour into our community the love and the investments that we need to really see some transformative change. Visit our city website, Corridors of Opportunity, if you would like to learn more. We have a dashboard that's available that will give more information about all of the projects that you've heard tonight. If you have additional questions, you can also find my contact information on that page, and feel free to send me an email, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help. So with that, thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.